The massive alien vessel materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning. Within hours, every screen on the planet flickered to display the same image. A tall, gray-skinned being with 6 eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. "People of Earth," the alien announced in perfect English, "I am High Commander Ta of the Galactic Hegemony. Your primitive civilization has been assessed and found wanting. You will surrender your planet and submit to hegemony rule within 30 standard rotations, or face immediate pacification." In Seoul, Admiral Ju Park stared at the screen, her jaw tightening. As commander of Earth's modest space defense fleet, she knew humanity's ships were outmatched, but something in the aliens' condescending tone sparked a fire in her. "They think we're helpless," she told President Do-Yoon Kim during the emergency summit. "But they've miscalculated. Our deep space telescopes have been tracking their movements for weeks. They don't realize how far our technology has advanced." "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" asked the president. Admiral Park's eyes gleamed. "That we show these galactic overlords exactly what humans do when backed into a corner." The emergency summit room fell silent. Around the table sat the leaders of Earth's major nations, their faces drawn with worry. Outside, the world was in chaos, streets filled with frightened people. Some prayed, some rioted, many fled to the countryside, though no one knew if any place on Earth would be safe if the aliens attacked. Admiral Park stepped to the center of the room and pulled up a holographic display. 3 months ago, our long-range sensors detected unusual activity near Pluto. We've been watching them ever since. The display showed grainy images of the alien fleet. Massive ships shaped like arrowheads, dozens of them, had been hiding behind Pluto's moon Charon. "They think they surprised us," Park continued. "That gives us an advantage." A general from Russia stood up. "What advantage?" "Their ships are huge. Our space fleet is just 20 ships, mostly designed for travel between Earth and Mars." "Size isn't everything," Park replied. She touched a control, and the display changed to show Earth's newest ship, still hidden in an underground facility beneath the ocean. "This is Thunderbolt. We built it using technology we found in an ancient meteor 3 years ago. It has weapons and shields unlike anything humans have made before. And," she paused for effect, "we have 5 more just like it, almost ready." President Kim rubbed his temples. 6 advanced ships against their fleet. "It's still not enough." "It is if we're clever," Park insisted. "The aliens expect us to either surrender or fight in the open. They don't expect us to be tricky." An advisor spoke up. "We should negotiate. Buy time." "Time for what?" asked the British Prime Minister. "If these aliens can travel between stars, their technology must be centuries ahead of ours." Park shook her head. "That's just it. From what we've observed, they rely on size and numbers, not innovation. Their ships are big but slow. Their formations are predictable. They've become lazy." She pulled up another image, showing a small, sleek vessel. "This is what I propose. We send a delegation to meet them, as if to discuss surrender terms. Meanwhile, we deploy our special forces in these stealth ships. While they're talking to our diplomats, we place bombs on their main vessels." "That's not honorable," said Japan's leader. "Neither is threatening to wipe out our species," Park countered. "We're fighting for survival." The debate raged for hours. Finally, they took a vote. Park's plan won by a narrow margin. The next day, Earth sent a message to the alien fleet. "We wish to discuss terms," it said simply. High Commander Ta responded immediately. "Wise choice. Send your representatives to the following coordinates. Come unarmed." What the aliens didn't know was that while Admiral Park prepared to lead the diplomatic mission, Earth's hidden ships were already moving into position. 3 days later, Park's shuttle approached the massive alien mothership. Through the viewport, she could see its true size for the first time. It was like a floating city, at least 10 kilometers long, with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. "Remember," she told her small team, We only need to keep them talking for 30 minutes. The shuttle docked with a soft clunk. The airlock hissed open, revealing two tall gray aliens waiting for them. "Follow," one said simply. They were led through long corridors with curved ceilings. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some looked curious, others disgusted. Park memorized every detail, noting potential weaknesses in the ship's design. Finally, they entered a large chamber. High Commander Ta sat on an elevated platform, looking down at them with all 6 eyes. "You have made the correct choice," Ta said. "Now let us discuss how Earth will be governed under hegemony rule." Park bowed slightly, hiding her disgust. "Before we begin, may I ask why you chose Earth?" "We are peaceful. We have not ventured far into space." Ta made a sound like stones grinding together, perhaps a laugh. "Precisely. Your kind has potential that lacks discipline. You fight among yourselves. You damage your own planet. The hegemony brings order to chaos. You will benefit from our guidance." "And if we refused?" Park asked, checking the small device on her wrist. 20 minutes had passed. "Then we would have no choice but to remove your leadership and install our own governors. Some humans would likely be eliminated in the process. Resistance is always messy." Park nodded slowly. "I see. And how many other species have you helped in this way?" 37 civilizations now thrive under hegemony protection," Ta said proudly. "Some resisted at first. All eventually saw the wisdom of our ways." "Fascinating," Park said, checking her device again. 28 minutes. "And have any ever surprised you?" Tao's top eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Park smiled. "I mean like this." Her device flashed green, the signal. At that exact moment, explosions rocked the massive ship. Alarms blared. The lights flickered. "What have you done?" Ta roared, rising to his full height. "Shown you that humans don't surrender easily," Park said, as her team pulled hidden weapons from their diplomatic cases. "This was never a surrender mission. It's a declaration of war." 3 days later, hidden beneath the lunar surface, Project Thunderbolt was underway. Earth's 12 exploration vessels were being rapidly converted into warships under Admiral Park's supervision. "The weapon systems are online," Admiral reported Captain Taehyun Lee, her second in command. "The shield modifications are still untested, but Dr. Mina Kang believes they'll work." Dr. Kang looked up from her console. "We've reverse-engineered what we could from their transmissions. Their shields operate on predictable oscillation patterns. Ours don't. And that's our advantage." Meanwhile, the hegemony ambassador, who called himself Envoy Sigma, had established a base on Mars, clearly assuming humans had never ventured beyond their own moon. "Your species is young," Sigma told Earth's representatives. "Acceptance of your place will make transition easier. Resistance will only bring suffering." What the envoy didn't know was that humans had established a small, cloaked colony on Mars 3 years earlier, and they were monitoring his every move. The Luna base hummed with activity. What had once been a scientific outpost was now Earth's last hope. Admiral Park walked through the main hangar, watching as workers swarmed over the exploration vessels. Sparks flew as they attached weapon mounts. Engineers called to each other over the din of machinery. "Will they be ready in time?" Park asked Captain Lee as they inspected the nearest ship. "We're working around the clock," Lee replied. "The hegemony gave us 30 days. We've used 5 already. We should have all 12 ships ready in another 10 days." Park nodded. "And the crews?" "Training in the simulators. Most were civilian pilots before. They're learning fast." Lee hesitated. "But Admiral, even with these modifications, we're still outgunned." "Not outthought, though," Park said firmly. They walked to the command center, where Dr. Kang sat surrounded by holographic displays showing alien technology schematics. "Show me what you found," Park ordered. Dr. Kang pointed to a rotating model of a hegemony shield system. "Their shields pulse at regular intervals. Every 42 seconds, there's a tiny gap in coverage as the system resets. It only lasts for half a second, but that's our window, Park finished. Exactly. We've programmed our weapons to fire precisely in those gaps, and our own shields use random patterns, so they can't do the same to us. On the far side of the room, a communication officer raised his hand. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Mars base. It's urgent. The main screen lit up, showing a young woman in a dusty uniform. Behind her was a red rocky landscape visible through a small window. This was Commander Sun, leader of the secret Mars outpost. The hegemony has landed more ships, she reported. They're building something big near our location. Some kind of planetary defense system. Have they detected you? Park asked. No. Our cloaking technology is holding. But it's getting harder to move around without being spotted. They have patrols everywhere. Park thought for a moment. We need more information about that defense system. Can you get closer? Commander Sun nodded. We'll try tonight. Their activity decreases during Martian nights. After the transmission ended, Park turned to her officers. If they're building planetary defenses, they're planning to stay. We need to accelerate our timeline. Back on Earth, the situation was growing tense. The hegemony envoy, Sigma, sat across from Earth's negotiation team in a conference room in Geneva. His gray skin gleamed under the lights. The 6 eyes in his face never seemed to blink all at once, giving humans the creepy feeling they were always being watched. Your time is running short, Sigma said. 15 days remain before we must take more direct action. We understand, said the lead negotiator. But surely you can see this is a big adjustment for our people. We need time to prepare them. Sigma's upper eyes narrowed. Preparation is unnecessary. The hegemony will provide all guidance needed for your new role. And what exactly is that role? Asked the negotiator. Your species shows promise in creative thinking. Though you lack discipline, you will serve as innovation units for hegemony projects. Your planet has valuable resources. Some will be relocated to other worlds to work. Others will remain to manage resource extraction. You mean we'll be slaves? The negotiator said flatly. Sigma's mouthparts clicked in what might have been amusement, a primitive concept. You will be productive members of a greater society. Your needs will be met. Unknown to Sigma, every word of this meeting was being transmitted to Luna Base, where Admiral Park listened with growing anger. They don't even try to hide it, she said to Captain Lee. They see us as nothing but tools. That night, on Mars, Commander Sun and 2 of her team crept along a ridge overlooking the hegemony construction site. They wore special suits that masked their heat signatures and blended with the Martian landscape. Through high-powered binoculars, Sun could see dozens of aliens working on a massive ring-shaped device. Cables ran from it to their ships. That's not just a defense system, whispered her tech specialist. Based on the energy readings, I think it's a wormhole generator. They're planning to bring in more ships, maybe their entire fleet. Sun's blood ran cold. We need to tell the Admiral right away. As they retreated from their observation point, one of her team members dislodged a small rock. It tumbled down the slope. An alien guard looked up, pointing a light in their direction. Don't move, Sun whispered. For a tense minute, the guard scanned the area. Finally, it turned away. That was close, Sun breathed. Let's go. Back at Luna Base, when Sun's report came in, Admiral Park called an emergency meeting. If they open a wormhole, we'll be facing their entire armada, not just this advance force, she told her officers. We can't wait any longer. We attack in 3 days. Dr. Kang looked alarmed. But the shields haven't been fully tested. Then test them faster, Park said. Earth is running out of time. On day 29, Admiral Park sent Earth's official response to the hegemony fleet. High Commander Ta, she began, her image broadcasting from the bridge of Earth's flagship, now renamed Defiance. We've considered your generous offer and have prepared our answer. The signal suddenly split into hundreds of separate transmissions as Earth's newly armed fleet decloaked simultaneously around the hegemony armada. We decline, Park continued calmly. Instead, we propose you leave our solar system immediately. The hegemony ships formed into rigid, textbook formations, exactly as Earth's military strategists had predicted. The human vessels, smaller but far more maneuverable, attacked in seemingly random patterns that confounded the aliens' battle computers. They fight like cornered animals. Ta raged as another of his cruisers reported heavy damage. No, his lieutenant corrected. They fight like humans. By the battle's end, the hegemony fleet had retreated to Neptune's orbit, having lost a third of their ships. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her heart racing. The crew around her worked quickly, their faces showing a mix of fear and determination. This was the moment they had prepared for. This was humanity's stand. Are all ships in position? Park asked Captain Lee. Yes, Admiral. The fleet is ready. All 12 warships plus the 300 decoys. The decoys were not real ships but clever projections designed to confuse the hegemony sensors. They looked real on alien scanners, but could not fire weapons or take damage. Park took a deep breath. Begin transmission. Her image would now be appearing on every hegemony ship. She kept her face calm and confident, though inside she felt anything but. High Commander Todd, she said. We've considered your generous offer and have prepared our answer. She nodded to the communications officer, who pressed a button. At that moment, all across the space around Mars, Earth's ships and decoys dropped their cloaking shields at once. To the aliens, it would look like hundreds of warships had suddenly appeared, surrounding their fleet. We decline, Park continued. Instead, we propose you leave our solar system immediately. There was a moment of silence. Then Tao's furious face appeared on the main screen. This is your answer. Suicide. The alien commander sputtered. You cannot hope to defeat the hegemony. Park allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps not. But we can certainly hurt you. The question is, are we worth the cost? Ta barked orders in his alien language. The transmission cut off. They're moving into attack formation, reported the sensor officer. Classic hegemony triangle groups. Park nodded. This was exactly what they had expected. The hegemony used the same battle patterns in every fight, according to the data they had gathered. Their ships were forming into perfect triangles of 3, which would then form larger triangle patterns. All ships, execute attack plan Delta, Park ordered. Remember, time your shots with the shield gaps. Make every hit count. Earth's ships did not form any pattern at all. Instead, they moved in what looked like chaos. Each captain had been given freedom to choose their own path, with only one rule: stay unpredictable. The space around Mars lit up with weapon fire. The hegemony's energy beams were powerful but slow to aim. Earth's ships, smaller and faster, darted between the beams, getting close enough to fire directly at the shield gap points. On the Defiance, Park watched the battle unfold on the main screen. Ship 7, you have 3 enemies on your tail, she warned. I see them, came the reply. The small Earth vessel suddenly cut its engines, letting the alien ships shoot past before firing at their rear sections, where the shields were weakest. Meanwhile, the decoys were doing their job perfectly. Hegemony ships wasted time and energy firing at empty space, chasing sensor ghosts. On his command ship, High Commander Tao could not believe what was happening. These primitives, these humans, were making his fleet look foolish. Impossible, he shouted as another of his cruisers reported critical damage. How are they targeting our shield gaps? His lieutenant, a younger alien named Nex, looked troubled. They've studied us, Commander. They watched us for weeks while we thought they were ignorant of our presence. They are insects, Ta raged. They should be cowering, begging for mercy. They fight like cornered animals. Nex observed as a human ship performed an impossible maneuver, spinning to avoid fire while launching missiles. No, his lieutenant corrected. They fight like humans. The battle raged for hours. Earth's ships took damage too. 2 were destroyed completely. But the hegemony was losing ships at a much faster rate. Their rigid formations, once broken, could not adapt quickly enough to the human tactics. In one brilliant move, 3 Earth ships lured a group of hegemony cruisers into Mars' shadow, where Commander Sun's ground team had planted mines. The explosions took out 5 alien ships at once. After 8 hours of fighting, High Commander Ta made a decision that no hegemony commander had made in centuries. He ordered a retreat. "We cannot win this battle today," he told his officers. "We will withdraw to Neptune's orbit and call for reinforcements from the homeworld." When Park saw the hegemony ships turning away, she could hardly believe it. "Are they actually retreating?" she asked. Captain Lee checked the sensor readings. "Yes, Admiral. They're setting course for the outer system." A cheer went up on the bridge. Many crew members had tears in their eyes. They had done the impossible. They had beaten back the mighty hegemony. But Park didn't join the celebration. "This isn't over," she warned. "They'll be back, and with more ships." "But we've proven they can be beaten," Lee said. "And we've bought time." Park nodded slowly. "Yes. Time to prepare for round 2. And to find some allies." As the damaged Earth fleet limped back to Luna Base for repairs, word of their victory spread across the planet. People who had been preparing for alien rule now dared to hope. In cities across Earth, crowds gathered in streets and squares, cheering the names of their defenders. For the first time since the hegemony arrived, humanity stood tall. They had been outnumbered and outgunned, but not outsmarted, not outfought. And now the hegemony knew it too. "They've called for reinforcements," said Captain Lee, reviewing the intercepted transmissions. "A lot of reinforcements." Admiral Park nodded grimly. "Then we need allies." Among the hegemony communications, they discovered messages from other conquered species, civilizations that had been watching Earth's resistance with growing hope. Using the hegemony's own communication network, Park reached out to these subjugated worlds. The luminals of Proxima Centauri, the silicon-based Turgeons, the aquatic Nelluri, all had suffered under hegemony rule. "We can share our shield technology," Park offered, "and our battle tactics." Hyunwoo Choi, Earth's foremost xenolinguist, worked tirelessly to facilitate these new alliances. "They've never seen anyone fight back successfully," he explained. "We're giving them something they lost: hope." When the hegemony launched their massive counterattack against Earth, they found not just human ships waiting, but vessels from a dozen formerly conquered worlds. 2 weeks after the battle at Mars, Admiral Park sat in the command center beneath the lunar surface. The mood was mixed, pride in their victory, but worry about what would come next. Captain Lee placed a data tablet in front of her. "We just decoded this transmission. The hegemony has called for their main battle fleet, over 3,000 ships." A heavy silence fell over the room. Earth had 12 warships left. Even with the element of surprise gone, they had managed a victory. But against 3,000 ships, impossible. "How long do we have?" Park asked quietly. 3 months, maybe 4. Their nearest major base is in the Sirius system. Park stood up and walked to the large star map on the wall. Their solar system was just one tiny dot in a sea of stars. The hegemony controlled hundreds of systems, shown in red. It seemed hopeless. Then she noticed something odd in the decoded messages. "What are these?" She pointed to strange signals embedded in the hegemony transmissions. Lee frowned. "We're not sure. They seem to be hidden inside the main signal, like someone is piggybacking on their communication network." Park called for Hyunwoo Choi, Earth's best xenolinguist, a tall, thin man with tired eyes. Choi had been working nonstop since first contact. "Can you make sense of these hidden signals?" Park asked him. Choi studied the data for several minutes. His eyes grew wider. This is incredible. These are messages from other species, from planets conquered by the hegemony." "What do they say?" Lee asked. "They're talking about us. about Earth's resistance. The news is spreading across the galaxy. One particular message caught Park's attention. It was from a species called the Luminals, from Proxima Centauri, Earth's nearest stellar neighbor. They say they've been watching our battle. Choi translated. They're amazed we fought back. No one has successfully resisted the hegemony in over 500 years. Park felt a spark of an idea. Can we respond to them? Using the same hidden channels. It's risky, Choi warned. If the hegemony detects it, they'll what? Invade us. They're already doing that, Park said. Send a message to these luminals. Tell them we want to talk. Over the next few days, Earth established secret communications with not just the luminals, but several other conquered species, the silicon-based Hersians, who had once been great engineers, the aquatic Niluri, whose world was stripped of its oceans by hegemony mining. Each species had a similar story: initial resistance, then defeat, then centuries of servitude. None had the military might to challenge the hegemony alone, but together, with Earth's unpredictable tactics. In a secure conference room, Park explained her plan to Earth's leaders. We can't win alone, she said frankly, but we've shown something the galaxy hasn't seen in centuries, that the hegemony can be beaten. Now we need to share that knowledge. These aliens will help us, President Kim asked skeptically. They want to help themselves, Park replied. They just needed a spark. We're that spark. With approval granted, Park set up a bold plan. Using captured hegemony technology, Earth sent small, fast ships to the nearest allied worlds. They carried Earth's shield technology, battle tactics, and most importantly, hope. Hyunwoo Choi went with one such mission to the luminal homeworld. The luminals were tall, slender beings with bioluminescent skin that glowed with their emotions. When Choi's ship landed, he was met by their leaders, glowing bright with excitement. You are the first free visitor to our world in 300 years, they told him. Choi worked day and night, teaching the luminals Earth languages while learning theirs. He explained human battle tactics, the weaknesses they had discovered in hegemony technology. They never change, he explained. That's their greatest weakness. They haven't needed to innovate in centuries because no one challenges them. Similar scenes played out on a dozen worlds. Earth ships arriving in secret, technology exchanged, plans made. Meanwhile, the hegemony remained unaware of this growing rebellion. Their focus was on assembling their battle fleet near Sirius, preparing to crush Earth once and for all. 3 months after their defeat at Mars, the hegemony fleet entered the solar system. 3,000 warships, led by High Commander Ta himself, the largest military force assembled in this part of the galaxy in centuries. Humans, Ta broadcast, your resistance was impressive but futile. Surrender now, and some of your people may be spared. From the bridge of the Defiance, now repaired and upgraded, Admiral Park sent her reply. High Commander Ta, we've considered your offer and have a counter-proposal. At that moment, space seemed to ripple around the solar system. Wormholes opened, technology stolen from the hegemony itself. Through these portals came ships of all shapes and sizes, luminal light ships that glowed like stars, Tertian crystal vessels that bent space around them, Nellary bubble ships that phased in and out of normal space. Over 500 ships from a dozen different species, all united by one common goal: freedom from the hegemony. As you can see, Park continued, Earth does not stand alone. Your rule ends today. On his command ship, Ta stared in disbelief at his sensor readings. Impossible, he whispered. These species are pacified, controlled. Not anymore, his lieutenant said quietly. The humans have done what we thought impossible. They've united the conquered worlds against us. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries as the beginning of the end for the hegemony. The combined fleet used tactics no hegemony commander had seen before, a blend of human unpredictability with technologies from a dozen worlds. When the luminal ships created artificial stars that blinded hegemony sensors, When Tertian vessels phased through hegemony shields as if they weren't there, when Earth ships led precise attacks on key targets, Ta knew his empire was facing something new. For the first time in living memory, the mighty hegemony was afraid. The final battle took place in Jupiter's orbit. The hegemony committed their entire regional fleet, over 1,000 warships against the 300 of the newly formed alliance. Admiral Park stood on Defiance's bridge as enemy ships surrounded them. "All vessels," she commanded, "execute Operation Butterfly." The alliance ships suddenly split into pairs, each deploying the experimental technology developed by Dr. Kang. Localized gravity wells that caused the rigid hegemony formations to collapse into chaos as their ships were pulled toward one another. When High Commander Tao's flagship finally surrendered, the hegemony's grip on this sector of the galaxy was broken. 1 year later, Admiral Park represented Earth at the signing of the Free Worlds Compact, a new interstellar agreement based on mutual respect rather than domination. The hegemony believed that predictability meant civilization. She told the assembled delegates, "They couldn't understand that our greatest strength is our unpredictability, our ability to adapt, to innovate, to surprise." As she spoke, screens throughout the galaxy displayed the ceremony. On a distant world, young aliens gathered around their teacher as she explained the historical significance. "This is how the age of the hegemony ended," the teacher said, "not through greater firepower, but because humans taught us that being unpredictable wasn't a flaw. It was freedom." The massive gas giant Jupiter filled the view screen on Defiance's bridge. Its swirling storms looked peaceful from a distance, but space around the giant planet was anything but peaceful today. Admiral Park stood tall as she watched the hegemony fleet approach. Over 1,000 enemy warships moved in their perfect formations. The Alliance had only 300 ships, but they carried the hopes of many worlds. "This is it," Captain Lee said quietly. "The final stand." Park nodded. "Send the signal to all Alliance ships. Prepare Operation Butterfly." Dr. Kang stood nearby at her science station. The gravity well devices were her creation, small but powerful machines that could bend space itself for a few critical moments. "The devices are ready," she reported. "Each ship has 2. They'll only work once before burning out. Then we make that one time count," Park said firmly. The hegemony fleet drew closer. Their ships arranged themselves into a massive 3-dimensional grid. It was an impressive sight, row after row of massive warships, their weapons glowing as they prepared to fire. High Commander Tao's voice boomed across all channels. "This rebellion ends today. Surrender now or be destroyed." Park did not respond. Instead, she gave the order they had all been waiting for. "All vessels," she commanded, "execute Operation Butterfly." Across the battlefield, Alliance ships suddenly split into pairs. Each pair activated their gravity well devices simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Space itself seemed to ripple between them, creating powerful gravitational pulls in unexpected places. The hegemony ships, so carefully arranged in their perfect formation, were caught completely by surprise. Their rigid structure became their downfall. Ships crashed into each other as the gravity wells pulled them off course. Others fired their engines to full power, only to be pulled harder in the wrong direction. "It's working," Lee exclaimed. The neat hegemony formation collapsed into chaos. Ships spun out of control, their weapons firing randomly, sometimes hitting their own allies. "Phase 2, Park ordered. "All strike teams, move in." Smaller Alliance ships darted through the confusion. Each had a specific target. The command ships that controlled sections of the hegemony fleet. These ships were now exposed, their protective formations gone. On her command ship, High Commander Ta watched in horror as his perfect battle plan fell apart. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Get us back in formation." "We cannot, Commander," his officer replied. "These gravity distortions are unlike anything we've encountered. Our navigation systems cannot compensate." "Then fire at will. Destroy anything that moves." But the hegemony gunners couldn't hit the nimble Alliance ships. Earth vessels led the way, showing their allies how to use the chaos to their advantage. They weaved through the battlefield like dancers, hitting critical systems on the larger enemy ships before darting away. The battle raged for hours. Alliance ships took damage too. Many were lost. But the hegemony losses were far greater. Their ships, designed for formation fighting, couldn't adapt to this new kind of space warfare. On Defiance's bridge, Park received the news she had been waiting for. "Admiral, our strike team has reached Tao's command ship. Their shields are down." Park opened a direct channel to the hegemony commander. "High Commander Ta, your ship is surrounded. Your fleet is in disarray. Surrender now, or be destroyed." There was a long silence. Then the unthinkable happened. The mighty hegemony, which had never known defeat, surrendered. "This is not over," Ta warned as Alliance troops boarded his ship. "The hegemony spans 1,000 worlds. They will send more ships." Park looked him in the eyes. "And they will find free worlds waiting for them. The age of the hegemony is ending." 1 year later, Admiral Park stood on a platform in the newly built Alliance Hall on neutral territory. A space station orbiting a star at the meeting point of several species territories. Representatives from 24 worlds filled the room, each wearing their own ceremonial dress. Today they would sign the Free Worlds Compact, a new agreement that would unite them not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. Park had been chosen to speak for Earth. As she looked out at the gathering, she saw not just aliens, but allies, friends, fellow survivors. The hegemony believed that predictability meant civilization. She told them. They organized everything into perfect patterns, perfect hierarchies. They couldn't understand that our greatest strength is our unpredictability, our ability to adapt, to innovate, to surprise. She gestured to the document waiting to be signed. "This compact does not force us all to be the same. It celebrates our differences. It recognizes that there are many paths to wisdom, many ways to build a society." The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Even on worlds still under hegemony control, people watched in secret. The spark of resistance that began on Earth had become a flame that could not be extinguished. On one such distant world, young aliens gathered in a hidden classroom. Their teacher, risking punishment, showed them the ceremony on a small screen. "This is how the age of the hegemony ended," she told them quietly. "Not through greater firepower, but because humans taught us that being unpredictable wasn't a flaw. It was freedom." The children's eyes glowed with understanding. One small hand raised. "Will we be free too someday?" the child asked. The teacher looked at the images of ships from many worlds flying together in formation, not a rigid pattern, but a beautiful, ever-changing dance. "Yes," she said, "freedom is spreading across the stars, and it cannot be stopped." The end.